There will be no Sunday with the Mayor for July, August, and September. I think we're going to use the picnic as an extended Sunday with the Mayor. So, and then we'll be back to the normal schedule for the remainder of the year, October on. In addition, again, I had made mention about Laura Dunlap. We do extend our sympathies to her family. Laura was on the Architectural Review Board for a number of years, and the last couple of years as the deputy chair. Her service to the village has always been appreciated, and her kindness and her sincerity and her volunteering for the village was greatly appreciated. And again, we send our sympathy to her family, and may she rest in peace. In addition, we did have interviews for the open code enforcement position, and we will be chatting about that later on this evening in executive session, just to wrap up some loose ends. But the good news is that we had a number of excellent candidates, and based upon that, the discussion later on, well, actually I should say the discussion will be with regard to, for sure, whether we want to hire the individual or individuals, but we are thinking about hiring actually two individuals, a full-time code enforcement and a part-time code enforcement official. The full-time official has a background in corrections. He was a corrections officer for about a decade here in New York State. He went on his own to get, after moving on from corrections, he went on to get a certification in home inspection, both in New York and New Jersey. It's a gentleman who definitely is in an arena that he enjoys with regard to code enforcement. The other individual, while being retired, he also went out on his own and is already certified as a code enforcement official. So we will not have to be sending him 2 classes if we decide to go forward with him. He has a background which, while not directly involved with code enforcement, is close enough, in addition to being active in his fire department as an officer, and again familiar with fire codes and things of that nature. So we were very fortunate. The hiring gods looked upon the village very positively, so our hope is that we'll be able to actually hire 2 people. So that
The only commitment that we make to them is that they'll be busy.
Yes. Okay, so that having been said, I'll open up the floor to discussion on the agenda and the agenda items only, please. If you have any questions with regard to something not on the agenda, I would just ask that you wait until the end of the meeting, as we normally do. Anything on the agenda? Okay, there being none, we'll just close the public portion to the agenda.
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
Thank you, Trustee Cohen. Thank you, Trustee Valentine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There being none. Thank you very much. At this juncture, I would entertain Resolution 2018-56, appointing Michael Scharf as our deputy. I'm sorry, approve the meeting minutes of the May 17th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor
I'll
Brown.
second.
Trustee Valentine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There being none. Thank you. Right now, we'll move on to Resolution 2018-56, appointing Michael Scharf as Deputy Chair of the ARB. He would actually be taking the seat that Laura Dunlap, as I alluded to earlier, was currently holding. Michael has been a resident of the village for a number of years. He's again very village conscientious, and he's an architect himself, and he will definitely be, has been an asset on the ARB, and he will be an asset as the deputy chair. I would seek that motion.
Mr. Mayor, I so move resolution number 2018.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Valentine, for the motion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brock, for the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There being none, thank you very much. I next move on to Resolution 2018-57, appointing Benjamin Jakubowicz as a member of the ARB. Again, Benjamin will be replacing the seat vacated by Laura Dunlap. Benjamin has lived in the village for about 15 years, 5 children, again, very active, very conscientious with regard to the village, and he's looking to get more active within the community, and we welcome his volunteering with regard to this board, and accordingly, I would seek the motion on
I'll
this.
make that motion.
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Cohen, thank you. Trustee Valentine for the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None, thank you. Next is more of a housekeeping, but something that we have to do periodically. Resolution 2018-58 is affirming that the village will be adopting the Rockland County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. This is something, again, that the county asks for us to do so that we are underneath their umbrella when it comes to various matters within the confines of hazard mitigation and in the event of emergencies within the county and things of that nature.
Mr. Mayor, so move resolution number 2018-58.
Thank you, Trustee Valentine, for the motion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brock, for the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, there being none. Thank you very much. Next up would be Resolution 2018-59, approving the abstract of audited claims, which has been updated and is before you as we speak.
It's, believe it or not, one of the cheapest months we've ever had.
It really is.
It's not questioned.
I'll move 2018-59. Resolved that the funds set on pages 1 through 2 on the abstract dated June 21st, 2018, in the aggregate amount of $104,649.39, as submitted by the village treasurer, be hereby approved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brock, for the motion. Thank you, Trustee Cohen, for the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, there being none. Thank you very much. Okay, at this juncture, I would open up the meeting to the public for any questions, concerns, comments that they may have. Again, for those who don't know the procedure, we just ask that you step up, state your name and address for the record. Please try to limit your comments or questions to 5 minutes initially, and then please yield to the next person, and then if you want to come back a second time, you'll be more than welcome. Just let's make sure everybody has one chance before we start the repeat. So that having been said, our first guest.
Jerry Liebelson, 31 Midway Road.
Thank you, Mr. Lieberson. Good evening.
Good evening. I have some unprepared remarks. I didn't get around to writing something up about this, but I think but I'm just going to talk about that, and then I'll come back and later talk about some other issues, because I think there may be people, other residents, who have stuff to say about this continuing problem of 312 North Highland. And I like to just show to the board, I sent an email, but...
Yes, we did receive it.
So you all seen this? Okay, everybody, if you want to circulate. So what's the same situation there is continuing, except it's getting worse. And I think some other residents will have something to say about it. The parking of the cars, there's now a Shabbos house, there's all this stuff, Monday night, Wednesday night, on Friday and Saturday night. And remember, this has a stop work order, has a violation. They have summoned the owner, whoever is there. He is not appearing. He keeps adjourning. And everybody, the neighborhood, is being made to suffer from this, as well as that intersection is the worst place for any kind of religious place of worship like this, without a proper parking facility and people walking back and forth. I mean, we've gone over this a million times. What's happening now, which I consider is like almost an insult, is that a sign was put up on that front of that property saying that on Saturday, June 21st, there was going to be June 23rd, there was going to be a bar mitzvah Shabbos of the Rockland Eruv, etc., taking place, and the words are, at this shul. Okay, this is a sign to the public. This shul that, again, is being illegally occupied and there shouldn't be anything really be going on there, but there is. This is not really, just so people know, it's not a real bar mitzvah. What it is it's a 13-year celebration of the Rockland Eruv, which I can't help but think is somewhat provocative, given that one of my signs for the public hearing, which we know is a big deal, is right across the street. But in any case, so my only thing is, I ask you to consider that this qualifies as a special event under the parade law, because, if for the only reason that they will probably have chaverim there to manage the traffic and the people, because if there's a lot of people, that is a terrible intersection. And if I am there, which I will be there, I am going to call the police. I will not have the chaverim be there without the police. They are not allowed to do that. They have no authority to do any of that directing of traffic. Okay? Whether it's the chaverim there or the police, that makes it a special event. Because according to the text of the law, okay, here I have it. Special event is defined as any of these things that take place on public property or private property open to the public, which causes the village to expend municipal resources to monitor same in order to protect the public health, safety, or welfare. Okay? Now, I asked in the email that we looked into it. I haven't gotten any response. Have you thought about this request of mine? Are you going to just sort of the same old thing with this property and kind of say there's nothing you can do because they, it's a legal issue. They have to appear before the court, can't force them, can't increase the penalties. So I wait your response. If I have any response.
Thank you. I wasn't sure.
I'm done, but I may have something to say to what you said, but probably not.
First of all, the matter has been forwarded to the village attorney. The village attorney has been in contact with the building inspector and code enforcement as to what the procedures are, if indeed this is considered a public event, and if it's a public event and they did not apply for the necessary permits as is promulgated in the village code. That being the case, if it is indeed a violation, the village attorney will be proceeding accordingly with regard to the remedies available to the village, insofar as the filing of the appropriate violations and/or accusatory instruments that would be appropriate for this type of matter. My understanding also, in speaking with the village attorney, is it is now a new owner. The previous owner had a stop work order, and the issue had to do with building permits and things of that nature. Had nothing to do with use. Use is now another matter, which again is something that the village must document, it must surveil, and there is a process with regard to exactly what would be going on there, to get on there to inspect. If they don't allow us to inspect, the next step would be to ask a judge to force them to allow us to inspect. And the only time a judge is going to allow us to do that is if, again, we have documented that there is indeed just cause for us to go on the property. So we are aware. We are going to follow the law as is out there. I have spoken with Ramapo Police Department. Ramapo Police Department has assured me that if indeed there is an event going on there, and if indeed that event somehow affects the public right-of-way, traffic, safety, welfare of any sort that would affect the motoring public, walking public, whoever is going to be there, they will respond as they usually do to make sure the area is clean, is safe, and clear. So the village is aware, the village attorney is aware, and we will be taking the necessary steps with regard to pursuing the matter in accordance with law.
So just to follow up, it's now June, middle of June. Why couldn't this follow-up inspection, potential look at it from a code enforcement view have taken place before now? Was it because of the original owner had it was summoned and we had to wait for that process? Why are we here in June then?
My understanding is that, yes, the initial owner, as I understand, was the process of having to physically serve him was not possible. And in accordance with the requirements with regard to personal service, the village attorney was working on that to make sure that that procedure was being followed. So unfortunately, there is a process, and while everyone would like to see things resolved sooner rather than later, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than we would like, and that's what's going on right now. We're making sure that we're doing this the right way, and it will be done. The village attorney, as I mentioned, is in his most capable and able hands, and he will be following up.
Do you think we'll expect something within a month?
I'm going to venture a cautious, optimistic guess and say yes.
Okay. I don't know, is there anybody who had wanted to say anything?
Excuse me, Mr. Liebelson,
I'm sorry.
I think it's still our meeting, kind of.
Yes,
So
it's your meeting, I know. If not, I'll...
If you're finished, you may sit down, and then I'll take it from
Okay,
here.
okay.
Thank you, I
I'm
appreciate
sorry,
it.
I'm very sorry.
That's why I appreciate the assistance. It's much appreciated. Mr. Cunningham, name and address for the record, please.
Richard Cunningham, 10 Appledale Lane, Chestnut. Couple things. First of all, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for getting the lawns mowed in our neighborhood. It's really a shame that we have to text you to hit somebody off their butt to get out there to make these people mow the lawns. After repeated calls to the village, talking to the code enforcement, it took you to do it, and that's really a shame. It should not have to go to you. So, that being what it said, thank you. At least 5 feet of grass is mowed. 45 Brocky Road. The burned out house, which is now a hole. We tolerated that for 3 to 5 years as a slum. Now we're tolerating a hole in the ground. What are we going to do here? I mean, the village is going to pine.
45 Grocky, that was the one with the fire.
With the fire, where it burned out. 5 years, it took them 5 years to knock it down,
Demolished,
right?
okay.
And they left a hole where the cellar was.
Okay.
They dumped 2 loads of fill off to the side, but they never put it inside the hole.
All right.
Now we got cans, we got tape. At least they're mowing the lawn, which is better than some of their neighbors do, so I gotta give them credit for that.
Okay.
But this is a hazard. It looks like hell, and it's a hazard.
We'll follow up.
I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Anyone else? Yeah. Just name and address for the record, please, sir. Yep. Take your time, don't trip on those cables.
It's Frank Magaletta, 9 Brookview Boulevard,
Good evening, Mr. Nicoletta.
and I'm concerned about 2 Samuels, which is a house being constructed right across from mine, and I've heard rumors that this is going to be a school. Is that correct? Is that rumor justifiable, or what?
Well, by definition, and I don't mean to be smart with you, rumor is just that, it's rumor. If it was going to be a school, there's a certain amount of acreage, which if it's on a house, that's not a school. I am not aware of a school. There's no application for a school on 2 Samuel. What we will do is we will send our code enforcement 2 Samuel Road. The last complaint I had about them was that, let's see, the roof appeared kind of high because it sits on a rise, and that the house has a basement and an attic, that this particular property never had a garage, and it was grandfathered in, that doesn't need one. So from the notes that I have and the information I've received, it's not going to be a school, it's a house under renovation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Magaleta. Anyone else before Mr. Leeson comes back for the second time? Mr. Corbin, please name and address for the record.
As of now, tomorrow.
Yes, my name is Jonathan Corbin,
Good evening.
6 Aberdeen Avenue.
Address again, please, I'm sorry.
6 Aberdeen.
6 Aberdeen. Yeah, we just need it for the record, we're not trying to
Right,
be
sure.
annoying, we
No,
just
I
need it for the record.
I just wanted to make a couple of points about 312 312 North Highland. The traffic is already intolerable. I think 4 nights, 5 nights, sometimes it seems 6 out of 7 nights there are sometimes as many as 20 to 25 cars. Half a dozen cars parking right on the property itself. And then I counted recently, last Monday night, 20 cars going
I don't mean to interrupt, but what time during the day?
at night.
At night,
At night.
6 to 10?
No, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock? Okay,
8
just
o'clock,
so we know.
8
All right,
o'clock
8
at
o'clock
night, something like
okay.
that. That was Monday night. I was surprised that they were there Monday night, but anyway, there's a heck of a lot of cars, and when they all leave, that intersection becomes just clogged. And some people just race through it without any concern about safety. What I'd like to know, though, about this place, this 312, this house, does the new owner have a C of O to be there?
I'm not familiar with the file, Mr. Corbin, so I can't answer you.
I'm surprised that there's a new owner. I mean, when did the ownership change?
That I can't tell you either.
Uh-huh. And what about the fire department? What if they have this huge celebration on Saturday that we all anticipate, and they have a lot of people in this house? I don't know how many. Are we covered by the fire department? Are the fire department codes, do they apply to this kind of thing?
Mr. Corbin, I am going to tell you that I have not inspected the property. My presumption is that building codes and fire codes with regard to safety and what's going on in that building are supposed to be in compliance. If they are not, the property owner, whomever it may be, is responsible for that. And God forbid there's a fire, God forbid there's any type of an event where people are hurt or anything of that nature, that is the owner's liability. The fire department, if there's an issue, obviously the fire department will respond, as they normally do, and they will take care of things. And I should also add, Mr. Corbin, if you are witnessing traffic jams, and if you are witnessing issues that you feel as though are safety issues with regard to the public roadway that is there, and especially if it's 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, as you know, the village of Chestnut Ridge does not have a police department. So you need to call the Ramapo Police Department. You can't tell us a day later, 2 days later, 3 days later that this was going on. You need to call them right away. Then they will respond. And if indeed that's happening, we also have a record as to exactly what's going on. It's not that I disbelieve you, sir, but you need to call right away.
Okay, that's certainly something I would do.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Corbin, if you'd like to speak, just come up and name and address for the record.
I have a question. I understand
And
what
wait,
you're
we just
saying.
come to the microphone so we can get you on the record.
Sure, Diana Corbin, 6 Aberdeen Avenue. I don't understand. Maybe you can enlighten me. The former owner did not have a C of O, and they have been summoned to court. They are not in compliance. So we have to assume then that nothing has changed there. The new owner doesn't have a C of O. So why doesn't the village of Chestnut Ridge implement an accountability for this? How can you let them go on doing something illegal? In my world, 46 years of teaching, when there is a rule in arbitration in the teachers union, it's right there in print. If you are out of order, there is a consequence. They don't wait. You don't wait months and months. And the other night, my husband was coming home in the car, came home very upset because they were all gathered there. Everyone has a right to live in this country and to follow the rules. But then there was a truck that came by with somebody shouting Heil Hitler. We don't need that in our neighborhood. We don't need that kind of upset in our neighborhood. So I implore you to really look into this before something terrible happens. And you're the mayor of the village. You are a man of law. You're a lawyer. I have lawyers all over my family. You have to be able to intervene here and tell them you have no right to gather here because you don't have a C of O. Once you comply with our rules in the village, then we'll let you come here. I don't understand. This is really something that I really don't follow, the procedure. We have procedures in the New York City DOE and the Board of Ed. We have a union, we have lawyers, but when we provide the evidence that something is out of order, we don't wait months and months. We have lawyers that bring it right away to arbitration. And we sit down and they tell the person that's out of order, sorry, you can't do this anymore. So the whole thing in this village is really, I've lived here now I've lived in the county for 45 years, and I've lived in that house for 37 years. Everybody got along. For the most part, we all got along with each other. And the Orthodox have a right to live where they want to live. This is the United States. But they also have a right, they also must follow the rules that we've all followed. So I don't understand this. And then on Perth Avenue, which is 2 houses down, there's new ownership to 3 Perth. The owner is, I believe, a Robert Adler. He doesn't live there. The house is being used by other people. They're there 2 nights, then they're not there 2 nights. And then there are lights flaring in the backyard, and there's banging going on, and then they're not there. So we really can't approach them. But today, our former neighbor, Pearl Solomon, was a wonderful neighbor. She lived there. She was an original owner, and she sold the place. Today, my husband happened to go in the backyard, and the pool that they were using overflowed. They forgot to turn the water off, so the entire pool flowed into our backyard. And they've had a pool cover out on the side of the pool for about the past month and a half, gathering water. When it rains, there are puddles of water. We have mosquitoes all over the place. So I'm asking you to please look into that situation. They seem to have a connection to North Highland. They come from that house. During the day, there are women and children that walk from that house over to North Highland.
Well, with regard to your initial question, with regard to process and procedure, it's just that, process and procedure. In a quasi-criminal environment, which is such as this, there are procedures. You're talking about arbitration in education, which is an expedited and a fairly express way of resolving disputes. It doesn't work that way in the justice system. There's a process. That's why they say the wheels of justice grind ever so slow, yet ever so fine. We are on it. The village attorney is on it. And we will follow the process that's dictated to us by the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of New York, and in fairness with regard to all that are involved, following the laws. Now, being one that has, speaking now of that other property that you made mention of, which may be creating an issue for you, your own private property, having lawyers in the family, then you're, I'm sure, intimately aware that a lot of what you're talking about is really a civil remedy or a civil issue that you have with your neighbor, which means the village cannot get involved. If you have an issue with somebody that's somehow affecting your property in a negative way, then you have certain rights and remedies that you should seek private counsel and speak about. If you're saying that there's some issue with regard to water pooling and mosquitoes and things of that nature, that we can look into, because the county has an office that we can look into. But if someone is doing something in their backyard that's affecting you negatively, that is not the village's job to tell that person to stop what they're doing. Okay?
Pool overflowing.
You know what, Mrs. Corbin, that's a terrible thing that happened, but the village has no control over something like that.
All the people on the street are very concerned because they haven't chlorinated the pool. The pool is stagnant, and there are many mosquitoes in the...
And we will follow up on the health aspect, no problem.
That's what I'm...
And that's not a problem.
That's what I'm...
And we appreciate you bringing that.
County Health Department.
Yeah.
County Health will look into it.
You can always call county health department to come
And again, that is something too, that you do not have to wait a week, 2 weeks later to let us know. Number one, either you can call right away when you see that happening, or you can call the Rockland County Board of Health and lodge that complaint, because that's how it would go. So you don't have to wait. You
Many
don't
of
have
the
to.
neighbors have been complaining for over a month.
Well,
And I have said that why don't, you live on this street, I live behind the house, you have to do something about it. But because we want to get along, and these are new people living in the house, we don't want to be aggressive. We were waiting to see if they were going to take care of the pool cover. We were waiting to see if they were going to chlorinate the pool. We didn't want to just jump into a situation. We wanted to wait and see.
And Mrs. Corbin, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the fact that you tried to do the neighborly thing, and again, it is appreciated. Now the next step is then if the issue continues, then what is the remedy? What is the procedure to follow? Okay, so this is, in all candor, unless I forgot, this is the first time I've ever been told of a mosquito issue with regard to that property.
Oh, well, you just...
So, in all fairness, I'm being told tonight, and I will look into it. But you make it sound like I heard about it and I
No,
was
I
just
didn't say
sloughing it
that.
off. So
I
I just
didn't
want to make it clear
I did make
that
that
this is the
assertion.
first time.
I
Okay?
didn't make that assertion.
All right.
But
That's
Mrs.
why I'm-
That's fine.
You, as the mayor said,
That's fine.
you don't have to wait. Pick up the phone, call the county board of health and say, there's a water problem with mosquitoes. They will come out right away. And if there is a violation,
No
they'll
problem.
issue it.
No problem. Yep. Anyone else? Yes. Just name and address for the record, please.
Pamela Jennings,
I'm sorry.
Pamela Jennings, 8 Samuel Road.
Good evening.
I prepared a statement. I have lived with my husband Richard at 8 Samuel Road for the past 35 years. The statement I will make to you is based in fact, since I have observed it over the past months. 2 Samuel Road and 10 Lillian Drive were both modest homes, as are all the homes in our neighborhood. They were both completely demolished down to their foundations. What was built are structures not in keeping with the simple appearance of all the others. In fact, 2 Samuel Road does not appear to be a home at all, and with an exceptionally large electrical service supply, it looks like a dwelling suspicious in nature. They both have been constructed without 2-car garages, which I understand to be in violation of existing zoning law. How did this happen, we have asked ourselves on numerous occasions. The only logical conclusion would be that the building inspector and code enforcer have looked the other way and have not done the job we paid them to do. I am aware that there is an abundance of new construction going on in our village. If the people we trust to protect our interests are not doing so, it would be a prudent step to place a moratorium on all new construction, hire a new trustworthy building inspector, and in addition, put in place a plan going forward that adequately and fairly represents the interests of all residents. Thank you.
You're welcome. I will address the... You preface that it's true because you saw it. That's your opinion. You made some pretty heavy-duty accusations with regard to employees of the village, which I take issue with. You brought your complaints with regard to 10 Lillian Drive and 2 Samuel. We will look into that. The fact that individuals may be building a home on a property that had a house that was smaller than it was previously is not against the law. We've been through this before, in that there were certain bulk requirements that they are allowed to follow. Because the house was smaller in nature before, does not mean it has to stay that way in the future. Anyone here is allowed to build a home that complies with the size in the zone within which it is in. There is no law against that, and we will not enforce something that is permitted to happen. If you have an issue, or you feel as though that there's an illegal use going on there, we will look into that. We will look into that. But the building department, the code enforcement are honorable people, and I will not allow you or anyone else to besmirch their reputations, okay? They are doing their job for the village. Now, if things are happening that they're not seeing, we will try to find them. But no one is entitled to libel and defame someone like that, if you have pure facts, I'm all ears, because then we'll call in the proper authorities. But without any basis in fact, I would ask that you just be careful with regard to the accusations that you're making. I'm going to stand up for my staff as much as I can, because I see what they do and how hard they work. You may disagree, but I see what they do. And we're going to try harder, and we will continue trying harder. But we will look into 10 Lillian, and we will look into 2 Samuel, to make sure that things are happening there that are supposed to be happening. I mentioned with regard to 2 Samuel, they were grandfathered with regard to certain requirements that now you may need, such as a garage and things of that nature. We already addressed the building moratorium. The fact that folks aren't happy with what's going on in the village and say, let's just stop everything, is not the answer. That is not the proper way of doing things. And unfortunately, neighboring villages are trying to do the same thing, and they're getting in trouble for it. I will not address it any further, other than to say, I'm not looking to get this village involved in a situation that is going to be detrimental to all of us here, financially. We will follow the law. We have a professional planner that guides us. We have a village attorney that guides us. Those are the professionals that the village listens to, and we take into account. A building moratorium is when you have no basis, you have no foundation. Unfortunately, people are overusing the need for a building moratorium. It's not appropriate for the village of Chestnut Ridge. It is not appropriate. Anyone else wish to speak? Name and address for the record. First time, sir, come on up. Thank you. So we will look into it. If you'd like to follow up and call the village clerk or the building department to find out what they found out, you're welcome to call them. Name and address for the record, sir.
Timothy Buckley, 7 Brookview Boulevard.
Good evening, Mr. Buckley.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing this. At the risk of belaboring the conversation we've been having about these 2 properties, I would like to say a couple of things.
2 properties as far as Samuel and Lillian?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
With regards to these properties. Now, my property, as well as my father-in-law, who is at 9 Brookview Boulevard, are directly across the street from the 2 Samuel property. On the side of it, 2 Samuel faces Samuel Street, and the side of Samuel faces Brookview, directly across the street from my father.